Let's do it.
All right. Welcome to Be on the Call, everybody. Mary, do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
You take it away, girl. This is all you.
All right. Welcome to Be on the Call, everybody. My name is Natalie. To my left is Mary on the screen. Joshua's over here.
I'll be right there.
He's going to be here in a second. And today we are talking about 24/7 total power exchange and CNC relationships within BDSM. And just to get to, oh my gosh, I'm sorry everybody, I'm a little under the weather, so if I slip up with my words, it is because I'm slightly distracted by the cold and what it has caused me to feel like today. To start off the call for some housekeeping, we will be recording the call on Zoom, as well as streaming on Instagram and TikTok. We don't want anybody to feel like they can't share. So if you would like to share vocally or verbally, you can use the little raise your hand feature. We won't call your name out. We'll just unmute you so that when we do post this video on YouTube, if you don't want your name to be called, you can also email us as well. But you can always use the chat. And we will read the answers out loud, and you won't have to have your voice recorded. Or if you want to say something and you don't want your voice posted anywhere, you can also send us an email and we can completely cut it out and edit it out so that it's not on there whatsoever.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Mary. I know her hand was like on the button waiting to push record. So thank you for that. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the beginnings of everything. So one thing I want to note is that this is a perspective-based call. We are speaking based off of experience, and we have knowledge to some degree, and we have done our own research within our experience. So it's not that we're just sharing information blindly only on experience. But we're not here to tell you what is right and what is wrong. We are simply telling you what we know is true for ourselves. And we're also here to learn and to speak and make mistakes and change what our perspective is based off of what everyone is here to say as well. So, which is why it's super important for you all to share and to change our perspectives as much as we may shift and change yours. Am I missing anything, Mary? Probably a lot.
No, you're all good.
Who's doing the administrative stuff behind the doors so that we can let the people in as they're coming in, so that we're not...
I got it. Yeah, no worries. But other than that, I think we've covered everything. And if you guys want to come onto camera, just wanted to share, our videos are pinned, so you won't be in the recording should you want to share your face. But I think we can hop right into the fun.
Awesome.
Cool. So our first question is, in your own words or understanding, what is the difference between 24/7 total power exchange and consensual, non-consensual negotiated relationships? And I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat.
Awesome.
Did you want to kick it off?
Sure. So I did some research today. I try not to do research. I shouldn't say that. I try not to do research, period. I try to come up with my own understanding and answers before I lock into Google and doing my own research, just to see what my own, like I said, my own understanding of what these three things mean to me, or I think they mean to me. And then I try to see what the internet has to say, and not necessarily see if I'm right, but to see where I sit with other people's opinions and perspectives on these things. Because what I've come to notice with BDSM and research on the internet so far is that everything is, you should always ask people, what do you mean when you say this? Because every answer is different per person. There really isn't a cemented answer, and I think a lot of the reason for people leaving the scene or having to take breaks from the scene is because people say to them, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do it. And the truth of the matter is there is no right way to do it. But anyway, let me get off my soapbox of that. What is the difference between 24/7 total power exchange and consensual and non-consensual negotiated relationships? For me, 24/7 means that you are in a negotiated power exchange all the time. Like even when you're away from the person, you're dominant, you're submissive, you're still under contract or under you're collared, and you're in a relationship that's contracted, and whether you're together or not, it's still happening. Like you're still there and you're still within a power exchange relationship. Meaning you don't have to live with the person full time. It's 24/7 collared slave, collared submissive, collared puppy, whatever. Total power exchange for me means that the dominant controls every aspect or has the final say in every aspect of your life. Not saying you can't negotiate or you can't be like, well, actually, I think this is better for me, and the dominant can change their mind based off of what your perspective is. But I'm just saying that the final say is in the dominant side of the court, and that's negotiated and consented to. Consensual, non-consensual. See, this is what I did the most research on today, because there's so many different variations and understandings of it. But to me, before I did the research, consensual, non-consensual means that you consent to have no consent, as it says. So for me, it's a contracted relationship. It can't be done just within play. For me, that is a forced fantasy, forced role play. That's my understanding of it for myself. For me, consensual and non-consensual is has to be one of the most contracted relationships and power exchanges. Like, there has to be the most negotiated. It has to be the most like, you can do this to me even if I say no, even if it looks like I'm not okay, like I'm going to break down, like I need to go to the hospital, like you can do whatever you want. Again, completely constructed. So that's my understanding.
Mary, how about you?
You didn't like my little head nod. I'm actually kind of glad you went first, Natalie. I think I was thinking about these a little bit differently. I think about these three different things in spirit and in action, right? So in spirit, I agree with you. I think 24/7 is you are collared, you are owned 24/7 overall. But I also think that there is a layer of when you're living in 24/7, like you are consistently in service, like of attention, like you need to care for all of the pieces, and of course the dominant, that's you are servicing and caring for. And I feel like that can look like one person or multiple people. It's really just dependent on each of those scenarios. Total power exchange for me is the action of what encompasses a master slave. I feel like that total power exchange is what you're giving over, and that's the sign off between submissive and slave. At least that's how I envision that. Just to say that I will go where you guide, versus let me think about where you're going so that I can guide, or I can figure out which way I want to be guided. And CNC for me, I've never thought about it as like a contracted relationship, and I thought that was a very interesting perspective, because you absolutely can have a relationship that is of that type of content. And I think I've always I've placed that in the element of play for me, and I can go into a place of being in a CNC type of play scene. But I don't know, I kind of like the way that you covered those topics, so I have more to think about for sure.
No, I appreciate your perspective on it as always, and I like that you were thinking about it, as you said, in more spiritual terms, because for me it was very much like protocol, which for some reason I never think like that ever. So I don't know why that was something that, maybe because I got into definitions online and that's where I ended up in terms of organizing it in my mind for this call. But how about you?
What's cool about definitions is that they give us boundaries. They give us legitimate walls to work within frameworks. The tough part about definitions is that some people will build their existence around the definitions versus interpreting the definitions for how this works for me. I'm sure if we were to pull up the definitions for 24/7, there'd be a specific definition of it. Could you pull one up, Mary, while I...
We actually have one because we chat GBT'd it right before this because we were like, what's the difference? And it gives you the scope and the... Anyway.
So, 24/7, I would say theoretically, romantically, like it's probably one of the most overhyped overhyped things that exist within this BDSM lifestyle is, to be a slave or a master 24/7, it's got to be so cool. Listen, man, it is not what you think it is, right? So 24/7 as it's received is being in the lifestyle, being in the power exchange, in protocol, in some sort of acknowledged power difference, power exchange all the time, day in, day out, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. To keep that shit up, you have to be rich and you have to have a lot of time on your hands. And it's like, I have neither. So for me, interpreted what 24/7 means is, and I will always come back to this analogy. I will often come back to this analogy of sniper spotter, right? Of you aren't mine to control. You are your own entity, you are your own being, and you are here to support me, and I'm here to support you. Because you are submissive doesn't mean you're a submissive person, right? It just means in this framework, you are my submissive. And that's how we will function 24/7. But how I interpret it is you need autonomy. You need to be able to make your choices. You need to be able to build your life experiences. My role in 24/7 is to support you 24/7. It's not to lead you 24/7, but it's to be of support. And that's how I define 24/7. We are in support of each other's goals and dreams 24/7. I mean, but if that's the case, I'm in 24/7 with most people in my life. But anyway, the difference is I'm leading. That's it, right? When it comes to the bigger picture of movement, this is the direction we're going. When it comes to total power exchange, it's like what I say goes. The definition is complete power, authority transfer. It's like this person has all the rights all the time, period. And I'm okay with that, right? It's through consent. I'm sure there are total power exchange relationships out there that aren't through consent. But my interpretation of it is through consent. And then CNC is I will do what I want when I want, however I want. And that's not the same as total power exchange, because in total power exchange, there would and could, and I'd encourage could be limits on what and how things happen. I think CNC is probably one of the most romanticized elements of BDSM, leather, and kink, because it's the fantasy. Take me whenever you want. Listen, man, at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning when you're trying to take it and they're like, leave me alone, I need to sleep.
We're not into CNC. There's the difference.
No, but you know, it's like, imagine after a while, if this person's got to go to work in the next morning, it's like, fucking chill out, man.
I think.
Why are you projecting? Let me finish my definition.
Finish. Because I just had a thought. I don't want it to go away.
Say it.
I think that CNC, there's very small amount of people who actually need CNC and who actually desire it to the point of it being a fetish, of it being a kink, almost like masochists.
Yes.
There's the people who, I don't want to say that there's people like, but there's such a small amount of people who derive sexual pleasure from pain directly, and I think it goes the same with CNC. And somebody said, are you calling CNC something that others might call a free use lifestyle? Accounting for the fact that I think most people think of CNC as scene-based, not lifestyle-based.
That's awesome, Mira.
And no, I'm not. I don't think for me CNC is scene-based whatsoever. I think it is completely lifestyle-based. And I actually watched a video today from E.B. Lupine about free use, the differentiating free use, blanket consent, and CNC. And it's so crazy because I was listening and there's so many different definitions for all of them.
Can you give more on free use?
Free use, she specifically explained it as almost a community of, as nudists almost. Not nudists specifically, but people who go about and it's almost like sex is nothing. It's just like, yeah, just use me and fuck me and whatever or whatnot. And I forgot what the other, like a community. Free use is a community of people of that sense. And a free use also being of a use me within a power exchange or within a scene of being like, I just want to feel used, and it's almost a piece of protocol, a piece of, this is what I want from our relationship, almost like an intention. I want to be used.
Free use. Check.
And the person who you're in a relationship has the ability to choose who is able to use you. And you just want that ability relinquished, that choice of yours to be relinquished to the person who you're choosing to choose the usage of you.
You see that
That's
smile?
what she said, though.
That's a real genuine smile. I really like free use. I really like free
And
use.
if you ask ChatGPT, they say the same thing. I think ChatGPT is getting kinky because once upon a time they used to say, too much. And
No,
now
there's
it's
so
like,
much
you want to
now.
know about free use in BDSM? Here's what it looks like. So,
Awesome.
very cool stuff.
I'm really excited. I would love to dissect this a lot more because there's so much here. Blanket consent is something that I get often. Blanket consent is something where I build a connection, I get a wide window of permissions. In this case, it looks like blanket consent, meaning you can do whatever you like whenever you like it. I will tell you no if I need to tell you no. All the time, period. And I am thankful that I have built a lot of my connections, friendships, intimate connections, romantic and play connections, with that being the standard. Because it's like, how I interpret my journey and version or experience within BDSM, it's like it's play, right? I want to have a good time. I want to, when it comes to the play element, when it comes to this aspect of it, I like to be creative. I like to create on the fly with the intention of us co-creating and bringing these experiences together. Blanket consent requires a lot of trust and a lot of transparency, with the understanding, like anything else, and this is the tough part about CNC and safe words, is if you tell me no, it stops. If you tell me I'm done, it stops. The only way to get reintroduced is if you bring it back to the table, or if we discuss in real time, listen, I just need a break from whips today. Doesn't mean whips are off the table from here forward. It's like constant communication and real-time, almost real-time negotiation. And this is the tough part about when you negotiate for scenes. When you negotiate for scenes, things get put on the table up front. Things can only come off of the table. Things cannot be put onto the table after play starts. And that's a hard and fast rule within that framework of negotiation, because then you bring in blanket consent, and mid-scene I could say, oh shit, I'm gonna go get this. And that is the agreement within our negotiation, that with this blanket consent, you can introduce an instrument at any time, and should I not want it, I can tell you no. My discernment and my judgment have to play big time in that, because not only is it about, I think this toy, this implement, this approach will add to the experience, but I also have to take into consideration how they're receiving what I'm bringing in, right? So it's not a me thing, it's a we thing all the time. And that's what's cool about all of this, is that it's co-creation in real time. But it's scary. It's like, don't do this shit 3 years in, right? Get into this realm of pushing the rules, bending the rules, after you've got a solid understanding of what the rules mean and what they mean to you. Both of them, not just individually, because those are two very different things. How I perceive blanket consent or CNC or any of these may vary hugely from Big Daddy or anyone else here joining us. It's like we all have different definitions. So this is a very awesome topic to be talking about because it's wide and varied, and oftentimes definitions get misused, or people use their own definitions as the standard, and that's not the safest approach to this.
Yes, 100%. And I think that goes back to something I said in the beginning about all of these terms and definitions when talking to people in the scene. We'll go into it more later in the questions in terms of research and vetting and education. Is what do you mean was asking somebody when they use the word 24/7 or they use total power exchange or they use CNC, what do you mean by this? Especially when you're negotiating pickup play or anything in general, but discussions.
There's a comment on TikTok that says the line between free use and rape is too thin. And I totally respect it. I totally get it. This is why vetting, negotiations, constant check-ins, I would personally say make sure you invest a lot of time into getting to know the person you're with, and trust is established. This isn't a fantasy thing we're doing. This is a fantasy that we're bringing to life. So it's like there are real rules to this.
Yeah.
The responsibility lies in both or all parties involved. It's while it sounds, and it is erotic, and it is hot, and it is intimate, and it is everything you can imagine it to be, the price of admission is high, and you have to be willing to put the time in so that you can do it in a safer manner.
Someone asked in the comments, is it considered 24/7 if you work as a pro dom and train people in your personal life too?
I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. I think 24/7 for me, 24/7 is the constant connection and power exchange relationship between myself and the individual. To live the lifestyle 24/7, because people, thank you for the question. Great question. Because people say, oh, I'm lifestyle 24/7. What that means is they are practicing the protocols and rituals in being a good leather, kinky BDSM practitioner by being truthful, authentic, transparency, open-hearted, open-minded. Like, these are characteristics and practices of being a good person 24/7. There's as a pro and as a lifestylist, because that's the other thing. Professional and lifestylists aren't the same thing. Think of it as professionals are service providers. More often than not, like, for example, I love this example. Therapists, they are service providers. It doesn't mean that they're practicing what they preach. It doesn't mean they're doing their own work. It doesn't mean they're doing their own healing or their own working through therapy. It just means that they are able to do therapy services for other people. It's the same thing for pro doms. Pro dom, we can hold space and we can create experiences regardless of how well trained we are or not. It doesn't mean that we're practicing the principles of the lifestyle 24/7 either. And this is one of my hang-ups around getting the professionals to understand that aren't in the lifestyle to understand the lifestyle, because what's happening in this process while we talk about negotiations and connection and energy exchange is vulnerability, safety, trauma comes up. Like, there's a lot of responsibility that if you don't know the pillars and the principles of the lifestyle, you can cause damage. And depending on how and who trains you, some people don't know this, and they'll go 3 or 4 years mummifying someone with saran wrap and suffocating them without knowing you have to leave a little breathing tube or some way to communicate. It's like, it's really scary. But yes, sorry. I get, they're really close to me at heart, because I believe what we do as professionals is profound work. We hold space and we receive people in ways that most people won't ever understand them. And there's a huge responsibility in that. But that is a great question. Thank you, Mary.
And they said, that's what I meant, 100%. Thank you for articulating it. There's a little overlap. I got shunned for being a pro early on, but leather found me and saw me, which I think is a very powerful statement.
Yes.
So thank you for asking your question. I do want to call out, there's been a lot of great comments, but I just want to shout out, Rope Aficionado gave 2 references. So the CNC Sext book and the Forked Tongue by Flag. Those are both available on Amazon, and they dropped the link in there, and it looks like somebody already got the book. So I'm going to go ahead and guess. Can you guys guess who it is on the screen? Can you point out who might have the book?
I just met his former slave. She was here doing the rope intensive, and she gifted me the Forked Tongue. He passed, unfortunately. He passed a few years ago. Wow, what a small fucking world, man. Yes, Rope Aficionado, thank you for dropping that in. I've only heard amazing things from this person about this master. Definitely check out the book. Wow, what a small world. What a small world.
It's really cool.
Thank you for sharing the resources. And if anybody has any other resources that they found helpful, what I found helpful today in my research was actually going on Reddit and reading people's stories and reading the comments about what other people's advice was to them. And I noticed for myself that when I research, I like to just find language that I think matches what I don't necessarily have the language to put to what my intuition is feeling. So I just really like listening to other people's stories. But in terms of education, please continue to post what you have read or what you've heard is helpful for us all. Shall we go to the next question?
Yeah, please. Wow, we were on that for half an hour.
Yes.
Sorry. I will sit over here in my timeout spot. It's like, shut up, Joshua. Take advantage. You got 29 minutes.
We're in the ball gang.
Oh, the abuse. The love.
You love it.
I consent to it.
This is not CNC here.
The next question is, would you categorize your current and or past dynamic relationships into any one or more of these categories? If so, share your understanding and experience.
Well, 24/7, I would say it's 24/7 with my slaves. Even whether they live with me or not, the idea is the power differential, the power exchange element is there, period. When it comes to free use, I think free use is probably the closest thing when it comes to access to bodies, right? Access to the physical body. I think that is the closest, but I'm also mindful. Like if I feel resistance at all, I don't push, right? So it's like, it doesn't sit well with me. So while I may have a lot of permission, I don't take all of the permissions because it pushes up against who I am internally. And I don't know how I feel about that, because if the permissions are granted, am I doing a disservice? Well, I mean, granted, you won't be getting the sleep, but the idea of being of use gets fulfilled, right? So it's like, where's that balance? But then emotionally, I can't get over that hill. So it's tough, because do I want it? Would it be hot and romantic and all that? Yeah, absolutely it would. But I also feel bad, right? Because what if you had a bad day? And what if you're too tired, right? Or what if you just need something else? I'm also, as the person who has to take care of the property, I have to be mindful of the larger picture too.
I would say that my current dynamic as slave to Joshua over here is 24/7 with the knowledge that I am a live-in slave, but I don't think that also categorizes you have to be live-in to be 24/7, like I said in my earlier definition. To me, he put it rather easy and correctly. 24/7 just is almost, I guess, for me, just complete devotion to the exchange of power. Yeah, I guess a lot of the language I was reading, and I'm going back to this of what I was reading online, is 24/7 and total power exchange being used interchangeably, and almost like it is the same definition. And I guess I don't completely know what my cemented definition of total power exchange is in comparison to 24/7. I want to say that our relationship is total power exchange, but again, I also don't necessarily know the complete difference from what it is from 24/7. My original thought was that it was complete final say, which I do think, if that is actually what I think that it is, then yes, I would say that the final say is always on this side, even with I can barter or negotiate or say, actually, I think you're missing a piece of information because I didn't say it or because it wasn't seen for whatever reason, life, chaos. But no, we're not in a CNC relationship. I do think that CNC is for like the 2% of people who actually desire that complete and utter. I think CNC, there aren't any safe words. I don't think that there are safe words in CNC. I think the final say is always with the dominant or whatever he decides to label himself as. Sorry, that sounded very like judgmental, which I also agree on this side.
Like whatever he calls himself.
Like I wish I was that person who I wish I was that like 2% that was. And I'm not saying that anyone who's in a CNC relationship is like, I'm not degrading or saying that that's not what you are at all. This is just my definition and what I think that it is. And I don't think that I'm in a CNC relationship. But free use, I'm what should I say? Let me like open the blinds. I am the person who is being woken up at 2 a.m. And I am a heavy, I like to sleep, but I'm the negotiation here with free use is that, and we've had it before in terms of, because there is that sort of, that block of, well, what if you need something else? And I'm like, I'll deal with it. I'll be fine. Even though I moan and I groan, I'm like,
yeah, like imagine waking your dog up at 3 a.m. to go for a walk. That motherfucker's like, I'm sleeping, man. Like, I'm sleeping. We have 2 hands up.
But I do aspire for us to get past that roadblock of just use me whenever you want, because that is something that I don't mind being woken up in the middle of the night for. It's much hotter than it is distressing. Okay. If Mary hasn't gone yet, do you want to go first, Mary?
It's okay. Let's let everyone.
Okay. Rope aficionado. Nice.
Awesome.
Hello.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts like usual.
Awesome.
I'm going to try to be respectful of everybody and allow everybody the opportunity to share, so I'm going to try to keep them very concise. One of the biggest ideas that I want to inject to this conversation is it's not about the process, it's about the person. And any one of these things that we're trying to describe, usually it's described by the people that are involved. So let's forget about that process, because what 24/7 means to me might mean something different to you and the next guy, and so on and so forth. What matters is the people that are negotiating for that 24/7, that are negotiating for that CNC scene. Now, to dive a little bit deeper into that specifically when it comes to CNC, Trying to be concise. Don't, once again, focus on that process of, I'm going to grab this person and do X, Y, and Z. Focus on the person and the emotional state that you're trying to evoke inside a said person. How you get there does not matter. There's many paths to get there if you're creative and adaptable. And ultimately, in my experience, that allows for more fulfilling scenes within the boundaries of what is defined by consent with those people involved. I have a golden rule in all of this. Don't lie. Never lie. With that said, anybody that's ever played with me will know that I am into psychological shit like no other. Mind fucks, ethical interrogations, abductions. You talk about it, I want to be about it. Don't lie. Ever. The best advice I can give here, though, is think about the movie Inception. Do not lie to your victim. Volunteer. Create a environment that is conducive for your volunteer to lie to themselves, such as the movie Inception. Because then at the end of the day, you can pull back the curtain and reveal the magic that was created by you, and to say, I did exactly what I said. I kept you safe inside of the boundaries of what was negotiated. Also, I think we need to stop thinking about CNC specifically as action-based. It's idea-based. We're not really breaking someone's consent. We're breaking the idea of consent.
That's so important. Excellent. Thank you.
And as far as authority, I'm going to be really, really concise for this. Authority is simple. Do as you're told. That's it. It's not our team, it's my team. You applied for the job. If you don't want the job, go somewhere else. And I'm not trying to be too harsh, but that's authority. Right? With that said, I'm going to add some softness to us. Anybody that's heard me speak has heard me say the mantra, fantasy versus reality. A lot of times we read this smut, or we see these pornos, or we get these crazy ideas in our head that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Well, then somebody gets a stuffy nose, or a kid wakes up, or so on and so forth. I cannot predict all of the variables in everybody's individual's lives, but you have to be realistic about what authority looks like to you in your life and the people that you have authority or are giving authority to. Thank you.
Rope aficionado, you are one of the most amazing people I've met within this lifestyle, within this community. The amount of wisdom that you have, how can people find you? Please drop that in the chat. Because it's like very, 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 very experienced gentleman who has been doing this for a long time. And I think what you have to share and who you are is a resource to folks who are really looking to dive into this community and culture.
Yeah, he's sharing the resources, but he is the resource.
Dude, he is the resource.
So, thank you. Sky Butterfly?
Hi, so I'm a slave in a 24/7 power dynamic. And the way that we happen to do it is through learning about decision making. So I'm not contacting him all day, with like every decision that comes up. But what he wants to instill in me is learning about how he makes decisions and the thought process behind his decision making, so that I will make decisions on his behalf through me. That's a method that we use. We also have a documents that I can reference and refer to when I do need to make a decision. So that way he's communicating it, it's written down, but it's something like that I can reference and go back to. As far as consensual and non-consent, I just think that's a little dangerous unless you have the conversation around your boundaries. He has consensual and non-consent, but that was after years of conversation, knowing each other, learning each other, and getting to a place where we fully understand each other. But I wouldn't think that just meeting someone and doing non-consensual consent play with a stranger I just met, I think that would be very dangerous.
There was. Thank you so much, Sky Butterfly. As you were sharing, I remembered a person we had on. I think it was Beyond the Uncovered Conversations. We were talking about. He came on to talk about CNC, and the insight that he had, the approach that he had, was really incredible. It's like beyond the romanticized part. It's like you said, the small percentage, the real masochists and sadists out there, not the ones with the tendencies, but the ones that need it. Is the same level like around CNC, where we're talking about the emotional reach, the stuff that requires medical attention afterwards, like the real, oh my God, this is fucking happening.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
no.
Sorry, because he said me and my partner have agreed that if him being the dom, that if I have basically agreed to, if I wanted to kill him, I could. Because it's consensual, non-consensual, and I've consented to giving my consent away.
And what they talked about in their negotiations when they met was each other's mental health places, how they felt about these things, and it's like with therapy involved and making sure that, I believe they said that a mental health professional had to be involved in one of their there was a structure in place, but saying, I understand if this goes too far. Right, so it's like there are people out there who desire extreme types of experiences that can lead up to being unalive, death, right? And it's like we have to know, as Sky Butterfly was saying, this is not something I would play with someone I'm just getting to know because it sounds hot.
Which leads us to the next question.
Wait, Mary, you go first.
Mary.
I'm going to go on to the next question. I will keep my answer short and sweet. Would I categorize my current dynamic in those things? As we've defined them, yes. But I also would say my dynamic is very realistic for being long distance, right? Like total power exchanges, I think about now as I define it, it will feel different when you're not together all the time versus like, it's almost like you have to not resettle, but like remind yourself of, okay, like, well, now we're here, like now we're doing it, we're in person. Like it becomes a little bit more different when you're not being able to be together all the time. But I would say though, it works, right? Like as we've defined all of these things, the beauty about kink is that it can be crafted to your relationship, your scenario, every facet of your life can fall into these categories. And I think what's beautiful about categories is their umbrella approaches, right? Like you can be in 24/7, however you define 24/7. So as we're kind of moving through it though, I'm almost like caught on this free use. I've never connected with something more till it was said out loud. I'm this. I love the push, the pull. And I think leading into the next question, which will be good, there's a difference, right, between CNC and what we're talking about as like the actual role play of CNC. And like as we define it, so the question is, what is the difference between consensual, non-consensual, and forced sexual role play? Do you have any advice, information for those seeking helpful resources about this genre of play? The biggest thing that sticks out is consent. You have consent. I know you. I've trusted you. We've heard it mirrored in some of the individuals who have shared. I've invested in you, right? And now we're at this point where I trust you with my eyes closed. I trust you to hurt me knowing you won't. Unless, you're into it, then that's all negotiated. But I think the only advice I have for CNC as being a woman who was domestically abused, it can be very healing to find someone that you can interact with and have exposure to that type of relationship, knowing that if I call out no, it stops. I hold that power to stop it. Where when I was living in those experiences, I didn't necessarily hold that power in that former relationship. So I would say that the biggest thing is that you can find healing, but please, please, please find somebody that you're taking the time to invest in. And as Sky Butterfly said, and as Joshua and Natalie and Rope Aficionado have shared, it's not an overnight connection. You need time. You need to nurture that. And most times, most conversations require another conversation before you even associate and play. So that's my thoughts there.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with most everything you said. I think the difference for me is CNC, as spoken about earlier, is a lifestyle choice and is a negotiated power exchange in itself outside of DS or MS or a module of a relationship. And forced sexual role play can be negotiated within an already contained power exchange, an already negotiated power exchange. And again, like I like same thing with, I know Robo Aficionado has their hand up, and it's right. He's right. We don't have to go into the specifics of it because it doesn't really matter to a degree, because we're all going to have different understandings of what they are. It's more about the who these people are that are negotiating and working on developing a sort of relationship together and the process of it all. But I do think that for me, forced sexual role play is, there are a more usage of safe words than CNC.
It also sounds scene based versus
Yeah.
CNC. Anytime, anywhere.
Lifestyle versus scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rope Aficionado.
Oh man, if you guys keep letting me speak, I will.
I'm trying to
And
get
you're
him
also
to
welcome to
You should.
kindly put my hand down. So advice, I don't even know where to start. Be logical, be simple. Start slow. It's easy to want more, it's impossible to want less. And a lot of what we've heard here is trust the person. Something that's been big in my professional life and has carried into my personal life is I value character more than experience. I can give you experience. So far, I have not learned how to legally or morally give you character. If I do, rest assured I will.
That's incredible.
With consent.
But you're a volunteer is correct, right?
Exactly. So, also, I think it's really important to go back to that mantra I have of fantasy versus reality. Be realistic with what your expectations are, top or bottom. Keep it simple, stupid, kiss, right? I love that saying. Don't focus so much on all of these processes that you're going to do. Once again, focus on the person and the emotional state that you're trying to evoke. Usually fear, but I'm going to give you a high-level tip. Focus on invoking dread. Fear is easily overcomable. We have evolutionary programming designed to deal with fear. Dread is a lot more sustainable emotion that we can create. And I think just going back to character, right? Focus on that. Anybody can say they have experience. Watch how somebody moves. Watch how they talk to other people. Watch how they communicate with you when you're talking about doing all these filthy, fun, consensual acts. Are they being dominant or are they being domineering? Do you know the definition between the two? I think that's most of what I have. I want to save space for others. Thank you.
Thank you. I think something that is really important is to say, I think you already said it earlier, is that people die doing BDSM and practicing BDSM and participating in what even the highest educator can teach people will die doing it. And oh gosh, where was I going with had something in my head. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna end on that. Oh my gosh, what? I literally lost my complete train of thought. I'm so sorry. I'm not even lying.
And on today's weather report.
No, I really had something to say, and now I can't even place it in my head. There was something I was going for. I'm really sorry. But anyway, do your research. Don't go to one class and be like, this is everything that there is to know about needle play. Go and learn from multiple other people. Do multiple 101s from multiple different teachers. Don't take everything at face value, anything at face value from one person, from anybody. Pick and choose what makes sense. And if it is science-based facts, then try to do the same, listen, take all the information down, go to another class, listen, take all the information down, go to another class, and then compare and see what's going on and what you connect with the most.
Or go see a professional. Bam, masterjoshua.com, kinkcollective.net, shameless self-promotion. Before we jump onto the hands, I just wanted to jump on real quick about, there's a difference between consent and informed consent. And I just want to read that real quick because this is very, very, very important, especially when we're talking about CNC. Because yes, we're consenting to the fun, but are we informed on the bad, on the risks? Right? So informed consent is a specific type of consent that involves a process of education and discussion, while consent is a general term that can refer to a variety of types of consent. So informed consent, a process where a patient or research subject is educated about the risk, Google of course, benefits and alternatives of a procedure or research study. Essentially is, we're going to do rope. Do you consent to me tying you versus do you consent to me tying you in a way that can create nerve damage, right? Very big difference there. Very big difference. Like, do you want to feel sexy or do you want to feel sexy while you can possibly be maimed, right?
That's where I was going. Because tone will change everything. You don't need to kill the person in order to give them the fantasy or in order to, okay, you're going to go into fantasy and role play. In order to role play what they've asked you to do, tone and anyway, it can change everything. How you go about it can change. You don't need to be unsafe with your practices. Continue.
Cool.
Sorry.
That was it. I just wanted to point that out. And Rope Aficionado said dread. So I defined dread. And dread is the fear building up to the being in the fear. Like if you got spanked as a kid, wait till your father gets home. The dread is, oh my God, he's on his way! Versus, he's here now, you're going to get spanked. Like you're on the game now. Like it's like huge difference. Rope Aficionado, thank you so much for that.
I want you to do that next time.
Daddy, Big Daddy T, and then ma'am.
So you said one thing that was big out here as I'm coming in was that informed consent. That was something big, was to make sure that you know, if you're playing with somebody, especially if you're new, make sure they know. Is really what they basically said. Make sure they know what's up. Don't just take somebody over and tie them up. Even if all you're doing is tying their hands behind their back or tying some kind of chest harness. Have them know. Hey, if I'm going to put a chest harness on you, I'm going to touch your breasts. You know, just down to that. You know, or is it okay if I play a little bit with your nipple? Informed consent. What's the difference? Can I play with you or am I just touching you? You know, yeah.
Playing versus touching.
You also brought in how, you know, our friends and our people that we have, this really is trust. There really is time. I'm so glad that one of the first things I learned here was you're not going to get it all tomorrow. I can sit here and say it's been a couple of years and I still haven't done much. And I'm glad to say that because you know what? I'm going to enjoy it in 10 years even better. Is what I'm hoping for, if we put it that way. But maybe those pebbles we were talking about earlier, you know, the little pebbles at a time. But yeah, no, being patient with it and it's the trust. Because what if you're doing a CNC and you have somebody else driving? I'm not part of the actual fun per se. But am I not enjoying myself just driving around with two people having a good time, knowing that they're both going to have a beer later and enjoy it?
Exactly.
Like, you know, making sure everything's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I still got to make sure that the non-consent's okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, even though I'm not that piece of it, like you were saying, it's everybody.
Thank you, brother.
Ma'am?
Hey everyone. My full name won't go on there. It's Miss Mammy from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I would consider myself, I am a dominant slave. I have been with my sir for 2 years now, and there is CNC involved. We are a group. I have a pack. We are Education Energy Kinksters. We believe in energy play. And I highly recommend CNC is not for someone doing pickup play. I've seen it in dungeons. I know everybody has it. It's fun. They're, taking someone they've already discussed their scene and they're throwing them over and having fun, acting like they're being kidnapped. And it's a different feeling. But CNC to me is an absolute mind fuck. How you've been discussing earlier, my sir calls me a free use kitten. To them, they use me whenever they want. I do, and I will not say no because I like the adrenaline. I am an adrenaline junkie. I am a sharps top. I am an electro top. I am an impact top. BDSM to me is beautiful. It's for neurospicy individuals that feel a more intimate connection in this type of way. And I just wanted to say that a 24/7 dynamic is so different for everyone else because everybody has something different within their negotiations. I mean, and it changes. So when you give that CNC the free use during your dynamic and the negotiations with your partner, that's what it's about. I get taken whenever. And I actually had a cathartic release. We were supposed to have, we went to a dungeon a couple of weeks ago when we were going to have a scene. I only bought them for them. And I got asked if I was service topping for the evening. So it totally flipped me. I was nice. I'm a happy person. I like to serve as many people as I can. And I did that. And I was not expecting this. And this is how CNC is different if anybody wants to know the difference. It's so mental. We were laying in the bed. The dungeon has a space to be able to stay over the night. And I needed a release. I needed a release for weeks. I hadn't had one pain-wise. I had a cathartic release from them taking me because it was not expected. Laying in the bed, maybe football was on. Something was on. It was so random that people don't realize how CNC can really mess with your mind. Could I not breathe for a minute? Did I know it was happening? Did I forget that I had given consent? Yes. I mean, it was brutal. And I was smushed and suffocated into the mattress. And it was amazing and beautiful. But CNC is a mental mindfuck. And if you do not trust someone, and if you're not with someone that you know that individual, I would not suggest it because that's what CNC is. It is... you can make it fun and you can play in dungeons and scenes and be safe. But please be educated on it because if you don't know that individual, I know I can tap out in a way and I know I'm going to be respected about it, but I will usually wait to the point to where I know it's been very rare that I've had to tap out, but I know I'm going to be respected when it does happen. And I know that I'm in danger from, like you said, someone could actually die. And some people do not understand the difference. You have to know your body. You have to know the individual that you're playing with. You have to trust them and you have to be educated. So I just wanted to speak about that because there's too many people that don't. Let's have a little rope. Let's have a little this. Let's do this CNC. Please be educated, everyone. It is very danger to be the thought to think that you're being raped and you don't know that. It's a mental mindfuck that can go with you for days because you're not ready for it. So please be prepared.
Thank you for all of your insight. I really appreciate it. We have a couple more questions on vetting and discernment, but I'm almost want to just make a whole hour dedicated to vetting and discernment based off of all this character talk, and it seems like it's needed and necessary. But we can go into the questions if...
It's also 8:34. I don't know how late people were willing to stay on. What I wanted to do is read what Rope Aficionado dropped in. It said, CNC isn't supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fulfilling, in his opinion. And
I think I agree with that. Very much so. Again, going into the whole masochists, it's fulfilling, the sexual fulfillment. It's about fulfillment and not fun. In terms of, that's the difference between, for me, like that 1% of people. The need to feel fulfilled versus the need to have fun with it. The need to...
It's like Mem was saying about a cathartic release. Like the loss of control. Like the real loss of all of it. Like you were subjected to my decision making. Period. Yeah. I like that.
All right.
But I think we hold on the questions.
I agree.
We can definitely revisit them in future topics. I just wanted to take a moment and thank everyone for sharing tonight. It has been really incredible to hear the more and more voices, as well as the chat. More and more people are sharing their perspectives. And the biggest advice we can give to you guys is to listen to one another as well. We're surrounded by incredible individuals that are willing to share their life stories. So Tween is already on it, but be sure to drop your hearts. We also know that talking about these topics can be incredibly challenging sometimes. So if you guys need any support following these conversations, feel free to go to kingcollective.net or visit us beyond.the.caller on Instagram. But you can find Natalie, myself, and Joshua at any of those platforms, and we're happy to pull up and support you guys wherever is needed. But thank you guys for being here with us.
Yes. Next week we'll be here, same time, same place, 7:30. You can find, it's the same exact link as you used to get onto the call today. And I think the conversation is collaring and covering ceremonies. So we're going to be talking about the differences between those.